Jew, who together with his partner Bob Odell, who's sitting next to him, an evangelical Christian from Texas, founded RootSource, the internet's first platform for Jews to teach Christians Torah and the Jewish roots of their faith. Gidon is also the director of RootSource Press, the premier publisher of books by and for pro-Israeli Jews and Christians. Next to Gidon, we have Bob Odell, and Bob is a high-tech entrepreneur and philanthropist, a pro-Israel Christian with experience in different streams of the Christian faith. Since 2013, Bob is focused on working with Orthodox Jews interested in entrepreneurial and philanthropic endeavors. Next to Bob, of course, you recognize the Reverend Rebecca J. Brimmer, who is the International President and CEO of Bridges for Peace and our oh-so-gracious host. Thank you so much. And then Sandra Oster, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Oster, I should know, Forrest, is the director of the Israel Office of Christian Friends of Israeli Communities, focusing exclusively on the communities in the biblical heartland of Israel. She's an Orthodox Jew and a resident of Samaria, and she has been doing this for many, many years as well. Each of these, there's such a wealth and a depth of experience and knowledge here. And at the end, last but not least, of course, Tommy Waller, founder and president of HaYovel. HaYovel is based on Har Broha in the Shomron, and over the past 10 years, the HaYovel has brought over 2,000 Christian volunteers into Samaria from 20 different countries. Their goal is to equip every volunteer to be an educated, effective, positive ambassador for Judea and Samaria. And that is our goal today as well. And Becky, again, thank you so much for giving us this platform for this. So we're going to ask each person a question. They'll respond. We may have a couple of questions within the panel, but then we'll open it up for questions externally too. Before I sit down, or as I'm sitting down, yes, I'll keep this. I guess I'll use that one there. Yeah? Okay. I would love for the HaYovel group to just raise your hands or stand up, just so we can see how many people can. And what's really amazing about that is these aren't the volunteers that they bring over necessarily. This is the staff and the family and the core group. The harvesters have actually already returned right through the year. So, I'm also going to try and keep this on track as well. And I'm going to start with Gidon. Gidon, as an early Jewish pioneer in Jewish and Christian relations, how do you see the attitudes changing towards Israel in relation or reaction to increasing evidence of the biblical fulfillment of prophecy, particularly in regard to replacement theology?
Thank you, Donna. Frankly, I like listening to her more than me, but I guess you got to get things rolling. First of all, I'll tell a little bit more about my own background. I have been working with Bob specifically on RootSource for about 3 years now, but I've been already involved in Jewish-Christian relations, specifically focused on Israel for over 15 years. And I've been in Israel for close to 40 years. There's another big number over there. Yeah. And I actually was, as Rabbi Tully said earlier today, I was also raised in a bubble in Queens. And I guess anti-Semitism skipped over me, thankfully, pretty much. But for me, it was all like Jewish is what counted. Obviously, everybody else in the world was not Jewish or probably Christian. But that's really what counted. What the Jews, as Ben Gurion famously said, it's not important what the non-Jews say. It's important what the Jews do. And that impacted me very much when I moved to Israel during my youth. But at some point, I started recognizing the then still very small phenomenon of pro-Israel Christians. In other words, I can understand that people were nice people, but to talk about anything besides the fact that we're just all people didn't really come into play. And when I saw organizations, like one of the first organizations that I found was Bridges for Peace, based in Jerusalem, the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem, Christian Friends of Israel, I started like opening the door quietly, trying to see if there's any information to learn about this. And as a matter of fact, I was just remembering earlier, possibly the first event that I ever went to, I was a fly on the wall in this hall, in an event that was hosted by CPAC, Christian Israel Political Action Committee. I think his name was Richard Ellman or something like that. And like, I didn't even approach anybody. I said, what's going on here? This was the first time I ever saw that people identified as Christians and said, we love Israel, we want to support Israel. Now, it's not at that point that I thought, wow, everybody's against us, which of course is another Jewish cliche. Okay, so some people like us. These are people that are identifying as Christians that want to support Israel, want to love Israel. And as Rabbi Weiss pointed out before, because we're Israeli, not in spite of us being Israeli, because we're Jewish. And I want to support that. I also want to mention another good friend of mine. Some people know David Decker, who also, when I first met him in the Knesset, he was working together with Josh Reinstein of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus at the time. He said, I love Jews, that means I want there to be more Jews, not less Jews. This was something very, very important for me to hear, because as soon as any Jew would talk to any other Jew about Christians, about anything positive about Christians, they would say, oh, they probably just want to convert you. They probably just believe that the world is going to end, all you Jews are going to die, and all that's going to be left of you is anybody who's going to accept Jesus, and that's really what they think, and you say this, but that's why we have to stay away from them. But I really think, and your question was, how does this work regarding replacement theology? I'm going to, now something that I say something because I think that other people are going to, that's the point of this panel, and like a good panelist, I'm not going to talk to the point, I'm going to talk around it. I think that there's something else, because really the idea of replacement theology is obviously has got a 1,000-year, maybe 2,000 almost year-old history, and there are a lot of people talking about it. But I'm now talking about a different aspect of replacement theology, and that is the replacement theology of Jews that Jews have to overcome, because the Jews have to learn to replace the picture that they have of Christians and replace it with a new picture of Christians, with a new kind of Christians. We're talking today about the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. Reformation, restoration, replacement, these are all these re's. We really are having a new Reformation in our time. It's true. The academics will teach us about, in history, Christians who were talking about this maybe in a little bit different ways. For the third time I'm quoting Rabbi Tully's beautiful talk from before. But now, I think more and more Christians, just like Jews, are more confident to stand in our identity where we are, and not to worry about what other people think, and to be proud enough to say, this is what we are, and we're willing to talk to you on the terms, let's all respect each other as we are. I think that there are Christians who are more and more recognizing, okay, listen, I'm an evangelical Christian. No, I'm just recording. I'm evangelical. The whole point, the actual word evangelical means spreading the good news. Now, some of these evangelicals, like my esteemed colleague on the panel, will say, no, evangelism for the Jews is not right. And that's great. But I'm saying something else. Some of these evangelical Jews can say, listen, I'm going to evangelize to the whole world, and even to the Jews first, fine. But that's not my mission. My mission is to stand together with the Jewish people, and let me take the word "the" out of that sentence. My mission is to stand with Jewish people. I want to meet Jewish people. Today with social media, we have this opportunity to get together, to be friends with people. And I, as a Jew, and as a Jewish Christian relations activist, let's call it that, I'm strong enough when I see somebody, the first thing they talk to me, they say, oh, have you ever heard of Isaiah 53 or something like that? I say, okay, you're new at this. That's not the way to relate to friends. The first thing you do when you meet a friend isn't, wow, I see that you'd be really good with my new diet product. Hello? Let's get to be friends before you start selling me stuff. Okay? That's the way it's got to be. And I think that there are more and more Christians are also being strong enough with their own identity that they can also do that. But getting back to the point that I just thought of on the fly, it's important for Jews to start recognizing this. Because I live in a small community not far from the ancient and holy city of Hebron. And I moved there because my relatives lived there. I could get a bigger house, and I wanted to live out in Judea, Samaria. Thank you very much, by the way, Sandra. I don't know if we have any fruits of your labor in our community, as you'll hear in a moment, but certainly I've seen the signs of a great organization. By the way, Sandra was also one of my personal examples. You called me somebody who's got a lot of experience in the field. I see here the people, I said, oh my gosh, how am I going to be on the stage with these people? These are the people that I looked up to as leaders before I even got in. But anyway, in my community, you can't talk about Christians at all. As soon as you mention anything about Christians, they start thinking about the Christians of 1,000 years ago. No, we're modern. We're 1,000 years ago. To think about, and Jews move slowly, because we have to make sure, especially religious Jews, we have to make sure that we keep one foot in tradition and one foot in modernity, and the fact that there's such a long experience of Christian anti-Semitism and Christian anti-Jewish theology and probably other anti-stuff. Everything is anti. So we got to go very, very carefully. But I think maybe I know that many people have told me this. But I said, listen, my business is reaching out to Christians. I like taking the easy road, and so I'm going to teach and help facilitating teaching by Jews who are interested in Christians and teaching Christians, what they're interested in teaching Christians, to Christians who are interested in learning from them. So everybody is on the yes, I want to, as opposed to those 3 days when I tried to be an elementary school teacher. That didn't work. The kids don't like being taught so much. But similar adults that were in the same place, we just want to do what we want to do. But really what we need to do, and again, I'm calling out to my Jewish colleagues, we've discussed this also in different forums, that we have to start being a little bit bolder, or maybe not, it's an open question, to bring more Jews to see what's really happening. This room is holding 100, 200 people. A few months ago, the Pius Hall held about 3,000 or 6,000 people, and we know that there's millions of people all over the world. Some of them know a little more than others where they're supposed to be. You guys, that's your job. But this is all happening so fast, and we'll take off a day from work in order to come to an event like this, which is great. Thank you very much for inviting me. This is really where the reformation and the replacement has to be replaced. The replacement of Christians who came a long way are now coming back, I think, and it's up to Jews. I'm now challenging myself to try to see if we can have an impact on replacement theology amongst Jews. Okay, there you go.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And I think what we're seeing is we're waking up as the Jewish people are taking their position where they're supposed to be, where they are going to be forever. It's waking us up. Yeah, so thank you for that. Bob, as Gidon's partner, and from a Christian perspective, how do you see that same question? How do you see attitudes towards Israel changing in relation or reaction to increasing evidence of the biblical fulfillment of prophecy, particularly in this regard to replacement theology?
I didn't know exactly what Gidon was going to speak about.
That makes two of us.
And I learn from that experience, by the way. But I'd like to sort of do the counterpoint, which is to speak to Christians interacting with Christians, because replacement theology comes about, it is understood when we interact, right? And so I just like to, I have a real affinity for the theme. I love the name, Bridges for Peace. And so I thought I might just